The Conservative Party of Canada is in the middle of a leadership contest to select their new leader. As such, I have asked all four leadership candidates to join me for a discussion about their platform and some of the issues facing Canadians. Today, I'm pleased to welcome Derek Sloan, Member of Parliament for the Ontario riding of Hastings, Lennox and Addington. Derek is a husband and a father of three. He's worked in the private sector as a business owner, and he's also a lawyer. Although he was only elected this past November, he has certainly made his mark on this leadership contest through his bold policies. His campaign slogan is definitely catchy, conservative without apology. But does he have what it takes to lead Canada? Will he be able to take on Trudeau and the Liberals and return the Conservatives to a majority in Parliament? Joining me to discuss his vision for the party and Canada is Derek Sloan. Welcome, Derek. Thanks for joining me. It seems right out of the gate, the media has branded you as a social conservative. Your opponent, Peter MacKay, I remember last fall, referred to social conservatives' values as a quote-unquote stinking albatross when he was referring to Andrew Scheer's general campaign. What do you think about that?
Well, social conservatives are the largest group in the party. They are the most generous donors. They're the most dedicated volunteers. And right now, they are feeling betrayed. They're feeling lied to. And many of them will leave if they're not respected. And without the social conservatives, we can't win. And, I would say every conservative, to one degree or another, is a social conservative. The consensus on many of these issues is there. I mean, there's some people who feel more strongly about them than others, but everybody in the Conservative Party does have a concern to one degree or another with family values. And it's disingenuous to say that we should, eject those views from the party.
Okay, now let's talk energy. So you're against the carbon tax full stop, am I correct?
That's correct.
Okay, and are all the candidates on side with you? Are you aware on the carbon tax if they're all on the same side?
Yeah, pretty much everyone has said that. I mean, Aaron O'Toole came out with a plan that may involve some sort of Peter MacKay accuses Aaron of having a carbon tax 2.0. So I'll let Aaron O'Toole explain that. But more or less, we're all against a carbon tax.
And if I'm correct, you are the only candidate who has committed publicly to withdrawing Canada from the Paris Climate Accord. Why is that so important to you? Why is making sure we don't have a carbon tax and withdrawing from the Paris Climate Accord so important to you?
Right. Well, the Paris Climate Accord has as its goal carbon zero by the second half of this century. So that means that's an aspirational goal to shut down our entire energy sector. I don't think we can do that. I don't think any leader should or can have that as a goal. The other issue is it's entirely unfair. China, for example, gets to increase its emissions until 2030, whereas we have to cut our emissions by 30% by 2030. Right now, China is 30% of global emissions. We're 2%. So what we're doing is we're giving China a leg up, and we're transferring our manufacturing ability and our competitiveness to China. It's a horrible deal for Canada.
And do you think Canada's active participation in Paris Climate Accord has harmed relations with, or spawned Wexit, if you will, with Albertans and those out west?
Well, it certainly has, because it's been the reason why we've come up with bills like C-48 and C-69. The approvals process is much more challenging because when Trudeau's government is approving these things, part of them is thinking, yes, I'd like to approve this project. The other half is thinking, well, how can I do that with the Paris Accord? So it's working at counter purposes to the West and to the best interests of Canada.
But does that mean that we, as Canada, with your suggestion that pulling out of Paris, that we're going to be against green energy or against environmental protection, or?
No, I think we absolutely need to lead the world, and we do in many ways. Our oil is sourced very ethically and very in a clean manner, and we need to keep exceeding expectations.
Okay, I'm going to hold you there. We're going to cut for a break. I'm with Derek Sloan, and we'll be right back.
I think the most important thing is just educating yourself and listening to other people's opinions. I think even if you have your own strong opinions, I think it's so important to listen to other people's. Even if you consider yourself a closed-minded person, left or right, I think it's important to listen to the other side, and I think that's how we can be inclusive and respectful.
Welcome back. I'm on with MP Derek Sloan, who's a leadership candidate in the federal Conservative Party of Canada race. Derek, we were talking about energy and all sorts of things before the break, but let's switch gears for a second. You're the only candidate, to my knowledge, who wants out of UNDRIP, which is the Declaration of the Rights of Indigenous Peoples from the UN. Why is this? Why is this so important?
Well, UNDRIP gives additional or takes away certainty when it comes to doing energy projects. We already have enough issues with certainty, and some people are concerned that it would provide sort of a perpetual veto for any disaffected group to prevent an energy project from going through. And we saw that with the Coastal GasLink project. The entirety of the elected band councils along that route wanted that project. A small group of protesters were able to shut that down. I'm convinced that legislating UNDRIP into law would increase that type of thing. We already have, UNDRIP was created for many nations don't have constitutional protections for Indigenous people. We have a good set of constitutional protections for Indigenous people. We can always do better to reach out to that group, but adding in UNDRIP into law will increase that uncertainty and will actually prevent many Indigenous groups from having access to those high-paying jobs in the resource industry.
Okay. Switch gears again. Bill C8, I'm kind of going all over the map here. Bill C8, this is, some people refer to it as the conversion therapy bill. You've been outspoken in your opposition to this. You actually suggested that Trudeau was legislating child abuse with this bill, if I'm correct. And as a parent and a child's right advocate, I appreciate this. But not everyone does. However, your opponent, Peter MacKay, said your comments are reprehensible. Is he right?
Well, the Liberals have advertised this bill as being the most progressive conversion therapy law in the world. So if, as a conservative, you cannot find some way to disagree with the most progressive conversion therapy law in the world, I would question your credentials as a conservative. So I believe Peter MacKay just wanted to use this as an opportunity to, gain some ground or try to gain some points with certain groups. But this bill is extreme. It basically says that the only thing you can do if your child presents with gender dysphoria is encourage them. So, the way that it works with this is kids. Many kids are presenting with gender dysphoria, many more so than even 10 years ago. We're seeing a multiple of 7 or 8 times. So many kids are going through this. We also know that over 80% of these kids will grow out of this by the time they reach adulthood. So if you're pushing them along the track to, puberty blockers, pushing them along the track to, surgical sex change operations that will render a child sterile, 4 out of 5 times you're going to be wrong. So why would you roll the dice on that? This law here does not allow for gender affirming counseling. A parent could go to jail just for trying to help their kid. It's a little bit complicated, but we just need to look at the basic facts here. And this is a scary bill. And, not only am I against this bill, but I would go even further and I would ban sex change operations for anyone under 18 in Canada. And that is the type of conversion therapy ban that we need to see.
Wow. Okay, some bold words there. Switching gears to provincial legislation, Quebec. Let's talk about Quebec's Bill 21, which is now law, and that prohibits the wearing of religious symbols for public employees. So this law is very popular in Quebec, but you've spoken out against it. Why?
Well, Bill 21 is wrong, and I think that Quebec, in some ways, is maybe made this bill because they haven't had as much control over their own immigration as they would have liked as a province. So I don't agree with the bill. I think that discriminating against people on the basis of their religious choices is wrong, and I don't think they should. I don't think they should have enacted it. I do think that the federal government, can work with provinces to come up with the right levels of immigration. And I have an immigration plan that suggests we need to cut the number of immigrants and also help them settle in all different parts of the country, not just our major cities. So there are ways to make our immigration system better, and I have a plan to do it.
But that's a provincial legislation, as we mentioned. What business is it of the federal government to wade into that kind of a debate?
Well, you know what? It's incumbent upon the leader of a party to have a position on these things. And you're right, the law was enacted lawfully. They used the notwithstanding clause to to enact it, which suggested that they knew there'd be charter challenges. So, it's their right to do that, but it would be my right as the leader of a federal party and the leader of the country to call a spade, and that's what I'm doing with this bill.
Okay, stick around. I'm going to stop you right there. We're going to be right back after this quick break.
Like just experiencing like everyone's like unique cultures, and like that could involve like celebrating their holidays or enjoying festivities or events that certain like ethnic like cultures would celebrate.
Welcome back. I'm with Derek Sloan, MP, and also Conservative Party of Canada leadership candidate. Thanks again, Derek, today for joining me.
Glad to be here.
So you've recently stated that you want to defund a variety of organizations, such as LEAF, Planned Parenthood, World Wildlife Fund, Climate Action Network. Why these organizations?
Well, there's probably many other organizations that should be defunded, but we're in a situation right now where we have $250 billion deficit, massive debt levels in this country, and we shouldn't be funding these organizations that are radically political and oftentimes use this money to make court challenges against the government themselves, or use this money to make court challenges against valid energy projects. There's no reason why we should be funding these as a Canadian society through Canadian tax dollars.
Okay, so does that mean then you'll allow funding of other organizations, or just these ones because you feel they're more ideologically driven?
Well, any organization that is, not representing the general views of Canada should be defunded. Any organization that is, radically political in one direction or the other shouldn't really be funded. And if these were right-leaning organizations, you would see this on the front page of every newspaper. But for some reason, left-leaning organizations get a pass, and that's not fair.
Okay, in the leaders' debate, the English leaders' debate, that is, because there was a French one as well, you took your rival Leslyn Lewis to task for her promotion of this concept called equality of outcome, an idea Dr. Jordan Peterson has routinely decried. You suggest, rather, that we ought to promote equality of opportunity. Why is equality of outcome so problematic to you?
Well, here's the thing. Equality of outcome is something that we can be concerned about. But the only way to get there is through equality of opportunity and working with individual people. So let me just give you an example. If you score 90% on a test and I score 50, we could look at that and say, oh, well, that's not fair to Derek. We could take 20% off your test, give it to me, and then we both have a grade of 70. Now, in that context, everyone would say, well, that's unfair. But if we do that in society, when we take a look at outcomes and just assume that it's based off of racism or discrimination or oppression in some way, oftentimes that's completely false. And when you come down and you look at the situation, you'll find, for example, in this scenario, I probably didn't study as much as you, or I wasn't doing my homework. So we need to make sure that equality of opportunity is there. Equality of outcome is something that we can be loosely concerned about, and I don't think equality of outcome will never, in a strict sense, be possible. It's impossible. People make different choices. People have different skills. People have different talents. So we need to make sure that the playing board is fair. But equality of outcome is something that leads directly to socialism and to redistribution of wealth. We need to make sure that the playing board is fair, that people are playing by the same rules. And if there's groups of people that are falling behind, then yes, we need to focus on them. We need to work with them. In this scenario that I gave you, if I'm scoring 50% on a test, maybe I need some tutoring, maybe I need some help, maybe I need some mentoring. But the idea is not to take away from you and give to me, but to help the person that's falling behind to achieve more.
Okay, good answer. Cannabis. Let's talk about marijuana. Do you support its legalization?
I don't think it's a good idea. And, I'm actually, Tanya, we've spoken a few times before, I'm very into health. I'm into herbal treatments. I actually believe that there's a lot of opportunities medicinally for cannabis. There's when it comes to PTSD, pain management, even seizures. I think there's room there. So I'm not an anti-cannabis person, but at the same time, I don't believe that healthy people should be using drugs daily or even not daily if they don't need to. And I believe here that the cannabis legalization has caused all kinds of problems. In my own riding, we're seeing a huge resurgence of organized crime. They're buying large tracts of land. They're doing large grow ops that aren't licensed properly. But the police don't feel they have the jurisdiction anymore. Health Canada doesn't have enough people on the ground to monitor it. And I'm seeing complaint after complaint in many municipalities in my riding. That's one aspect. The other is when 18-year-olds, 17-year-olds, it's easier access now, and there are concerns that when healthy people, especially people who are still developing, brains are still developing, there's links. There's concerns that there's links between schizophrenia and other mental illnesses. So I don't think anybody, if you take a Tylenol every day, that can harm your liver. So we need to use drugs and medicinal treatments for real health conditions, but I don't think we should be using cannabis just because. And I believe that legalizing it has made it far more available, particularly to our kids.
Okay, well, hold that thought. We'll be right back after this break.
Because I feel it's pretty important to just not only look at one source of information, just like you have a whole wide world of information out there, so you have more than one place to look for. So if you're making your own decision out of just one source of information, then okay, that's fine, and you are making it yourself, but you're just looking in one spot. So it's always good to just have the whole story before judging and saying you already have the whole story in your head.
Welcome back. I'm wrapping up here with Derek Sloan, candidate for the federal Conservative leadership. Derek, cancel culture, let's talk about that. It seems to be alive and well in Canada and probably in most of the world. Both you and your opponent, Erin O'Toole, have spoken out against this. Why should this matter to Canadians and Conservatives at large?
Well, it's a major problem in Canada. It's also a problem within the Conservative Party. We've seen nomination candidates. So these are people who've been selected by their local people to run, nixed by the leadership because of their views. And that's inappropriate. And in this particular race, we've seen other candidates kicked out. We've seen Richard Descaries, who was kicked out. We have no idea why, or prevented from running, I suppose, is the technical way. It likely was because of his socially conservative views. We saw Jim Karahalios, who has a lot of fans here in Ontario for his work fighting the carbon tax, who was kicked out based on a complaint generated by Erin O'Toole's camp. So, I mean, if we can't deal with cancel culture in our own party, we can't deal with it in Canada at large. And, I have some great plans to deal with cancel culture. I'm the only person who has a plan to deal with censorship on social media. That's one of the major issues that we're facing right now. And I have a great plan to deal with it.
Let's talk COVID-19 and Canada's response. So you were called out by the media and even some of your fellow MP colleagues for questioning Dr. Theresa Tam's loyalty and the handling of the pandemic in Canada. What are your comments about this now that it's been several weeks?
Well, it's funny because now no one questions it at all. And when I said it, it seemed to be the end of the world. It was very clear that we were following the wrong advice from the World Health Organization, who was getting their advice from China, who is actively covering up the coronavirus outbreak. They were imprisoning their own scientists who were raising the alarm bell. And, Theresa Tam gave us the wrong advice on several occasions. And she continues to do that. First the COVID-19 was no big deal at all. No travel bans, no masks. We don't need to do anything. It's not transmissible from human to human. And then now it's the worst thing ever. We have to stay shut down indefinitely. So, we can't be, this type of advice costs Canadian lives. We can't be relying on it. And I'm the only candidate that stood up and said, look, the World Health Organization is politically oriented. It's complicit in, covering up this information. We shouldn't be funding them. And we give them hundreds of millions of dollars a year.
Okay, in the minute and a half we have left, I have my final question, and I think this is weighing on many Canadians' minds. We know our economy has been hit hard because of COVID. Canada did so well coming out of the 2008 global economic crisis with Prime Minister Harper and Finance Minister Jim Flaherty, Conservatives, at the helm. What steps would you take to lead Canada out of this crisis?
Well, the first thing I would say is we better be sure that we're ready for another one of these viruses, because it will happen again. I'm sure of it. And we can't be shutting down the economy every single time it happens. So we need to make sure that we have protective equipment here, that we have a testing regime that's ready to go, and a framework to deal with this. In terms of dealing with this particular recovery, listen, we have to do what we would have done anyways. So that means cutting waste in the federal government. There's so many things that we fund that are wasteful. We spend hundreds of millions of dollars funding abortions overseas. I mean, these are the types of things that we have to cut. We have to cut taxes for families and small businesses. This encourages innovation and entrepreneurship. We need to make sure that we get our energy sector back on track. We lose billions of dollars every year simply because we can't process our own oil. It's funny. The Irving refinery on the East Coast just made arrangements to ship oil through the Panama Canal. So way down there in South America, Central America, they're all the way up to the East Coast, so they can get Canadian oil and refine it there. They're bringing in tankers from other countries and all that. But why not just have a pipeline? You know what I mean? We need to make sure that we're capitalizing on our own resources here, and I'm the candidate that's going to get it done.
Well, Derek, you've given us a lot of information on your platform and your policies. So thank you so much for taking your time to spend with us today, and we'll see what happens. Best of luck at the election ballot box.
Glad to be here. Thank you so much.
So you've heard from one of the CPC leadership candidates, Derek Sloan, the youngest of the lot. We heard from all sorts of policies from his campaign, from carbon tax to the Paris Climate Accord to cancel culture, and his vision for really how Canada needs to emerge post-COVID. I plan on interviewing all 4 candidates. This was just the first. So stick around and we'll be back with another candidate soon with Counterpoint. I'm Tanya Granick-Allen.